1:06. I hereby call to order the October 22nd, 2024 Special Magistrate proceeding for the City of Daytona Beach for its rental program. My name is Robert Riggio. I'm the Special Magistrate who will be hearing these matters this afternoon. Usually we're in the morning, so I'm glad to see you all here. And it's a fairly simple process. Your case will be called, and then at that time I would like whoever will be presenting or as a witness for the respondent, that's the person who's been cited, to please come over to the microphone, which would be on your right side, my left, that one over there, at which time you will be asked to state your name and be sworn in by the board clerk. And then the inspector will be over at this podium and proceed at that point to present whatever the matter is, whether if it's a violation, a lien review, or whatever the city's position regarding it. I will take that back. On a lien review, actually, you should be presenting first because you're a petitioner at that point, and why you're entitled to feel you're entitled to a lien review and a reduction of the lien. And then it will go back and forth as appropriate until the parties have basically exhausted their arguments. Please feel free, if you have something that you want to say it. And then I may have some questions for you or for Mr. Jackson, who is serving as the attorney for the city. And then we render a decision one way or another, or continue it as the matter may warrant. And that's it. And please feel free to say whatever you need to say, because there may be fines that are levied, and if you don't give me your defenses, then I can't consider them. Okay, so we have called the meeting to order. Are there any announcements?
No, sir.
Okay. The third item is approval of the September 2024 meeting minutes. That was last month's meeting, and I've approved them and provided them to the board clerk and signed off on them. And now comes the fourth item, which is the hearing of cases. But before we begin that, I will need all of city staff who may be presenting testimony to come forward and be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, our first matter today is we have two lien reviews. The first one is Lien Review 1, CEB 02-2039, property being at 312 Francis Terrace, the respondent being Neil and Cora Hitchman, and there was a fine lien that was entered in this matter, and currently the amount due is $15,000 plus $24 in recording fees and $1,801.66 in interest.
I believe Jessica Woodard, their property manager, is appearing via Zoom.
No, I have cases 2 and 3.
Okay. Well, go on. We did meet with them, so Carl can tell you what we met about.
That's one of my biggest problems in looking over the record on this. The respondent, I believe the property manager showed up at the very first violation, and this goes back to 2020.
2019, actually.
2019. And it works much smoother when respondents provide input to me. At this point, all I know is that there were violations and there was an order entered, and it's been sitting there for, I think, about 4 years now with no one taking any action. So, Mr. Wexelberg, can you bring me up to date on where things stand?
All right. Good afternoon, sir. Carl Wexelberg, Code Compliance City Inspector. My credentials are on file. As you previously stated, this has been existing since 2019. Since that date, the property has been brought into compliance by the property managers. I believe there was a previous property manager at the first case, and this is a new property manager. But regardless, we held a meeting on October 3rd in which we came to an agreed amount of reduction to $5,000, subject to payment within 30 days. And that's the staff's recommendation.
Okay. I'd like to see it. I could see from the record that things were going on, but nobody was providing input from the respondents' end.
Yes.
And I'm glad to see that it's now finally in compliance and that you have reached something that works, and I don't have a problem with that amount. So therefore, in case CEB or CEB 022039, property being at 312 Francis Terrace, respondents being Neil and Cora Hitchman, I order the lien to be reduced to the amount of $5,000, subject to being paid within 30 days, or the fine will revert back to the original amount. And as I say, whenever I enter a lien reduction, if there is a problem, and I don't know if the respondents are listening in somehow or whatever, they need to get in contact with the city before the 30 days elapses, or else it goes back to $15,000 plus the recording fees and the interest and all of the things that have accumulated. So hopefully this matter is brought to a close.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right. Case number 2 is Lien Review 2, RTL 08-21-183, 433 Pelican Bay Drive, respondents being Harpreet Kaur Sadi and Harbans Kalra. And at this compliance was eventually reached, I believe, on June 27th, 2022.
Yes, sir.
However, there was an order entered, and the order has continued on since and has drawn interest in various things. And so at this time, there was also a lien review some time ago, which I denied without prejudice, so that the respondent would have an opportunity to come forward and restate their case. So at this time, the amount due is $15,000 plus $24 in recording fees and $1,438.70 in interest. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Harpreet. I'm the owner of the house.
I need to swear you in.
Oh, yeah.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And could I get your name again for the record so I have it?
My name is Harpreet, Harpreet. Last name Sodhi, Sodhi.
Harpreet Sodhi?
Yeah.
Okay. And what, okay.
So I
and
have
at this
submitted,
time, it's
yeah.
you're making a request that there be a reduction in the amount of lien, I take it.
Please, yes.
And so if you can state your reasoning for why there should be a reduction.
Yes, sir. This happened during COVID, and the tenants that we had was a difficult case. I've provided emails of them not letting the city or the stove, it was a stove that was not working, the stove person to go in to fix it. Every time they did go to fix it, they would remove the wire. That was my dad who figured it out when he was able to come after Canadian and American borders were open in 2022. So in 2022 January, we did try to come. They were closed again. They opened in March 2022. And in June, I believe, everything was sorted. But before that, the store was working because they were living there. And we sent numerous technicians out there, from which I have provided proof today as well, emails saying that everything is good. But every time the city went there, it wasn't working. And we provided proof now. I got everything together. For some reason, I wasn't able to visit back Florida with life and work, but now I am here. I'm hands-on with everything, and I've provided everything.
Okay. These COVID cases were always a problem,
I know.
but we had our issues with all of the various things, and so I understand. Mr. Mango, what does the city say?
Well, we've agreed with submission of additional documentation today to reduce the fine down to 0. She provided documentation dated within the time frame of the case and the scheduled inspections, September 13th of 2021, that there's an $85 invoice and a separate invoice for February 8th of 2021 for the stove repairs, in addition to an invoice dated September 3rd, 2021 for screen installations and repairs at the property. So that's sufficient documentation that shows there was work done for stove repair and screens during the time of that case.
Yeah, I believe that the last time it was continued because I said there wasn't any documentation to support. So if the does that if that works for the city, Ms. Sodi, does that work for you? Okay. Therefore, in case RTL 0821-183, property being at 433 Pelican Bay Drive, respondents being Harpreet Sodi and Harbans Kalra. I hereby order the lien in that case be reduced to the amount of $0. And therefore, there's nothing about, you don't have to pay anything. The case is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
I'll be in touch. You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Do we have any more of those COVID cases still floating around out there?
Oh, I'm sure there are some that are floating around. Their issue was that they lived in Canada and the border was closed
Right.
for so long.
Well, I don't know these things sometimes, and nobody ever informed me that they couldn't, as the owners, get down here to.
Yeah, and her father was in India, so he definitely couldn't get around very well. But that was the first part of the issue, and the second was the interactions that they had with the tenants. They had
Yeah.
some difficulties with their tenant.
Yeah. Okay. We're moving on to new cases, irreparable and irreversible. Case number 1 is RTL 10-2491. Pepe L. Gaibor, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 at 265 Columbus Avenue.
Could you state your name, please?
Rachel Gabor.
And raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
In your relationship to Pepe Gabor?
his daughter.
Okay. Mr. Yates?
The case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned SFR 5. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning district. The violation was first observed September 10th, 2024, and they were notified the same day. Property stopped actively advertising as of September 12th, 2024. The daily posted rate was $111 and displayed 1 review. The check-in, check-out time were shown as 3 p.m. and 11 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to that, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $1,000.
All right. Okay. Ms. Gabor? Oh, before I do, Mr. Jackson has something he generally wants to add. I see him walking up to the podium.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Magistrate. Anthony Jackson, attorney for the city. As I normally do, we're asking for these cases to be deemed irreparable and irreversible in nature, as provided in Chapter 162.09, subsection 1D of the Florida statute. This is something we ask in all of the cases that are short-term rental cases. And so anyone who is here that's here for a short-term rental case, please listen in. As you may be able to tell well, you may not know this, but this isn't my normal voice. So, but I will do my best to make it as clear as I can, and if necessary, we'll read it or provide it again. But this, what I'm stating, it's the position of the city for the magistrate to consider as he makes a determination of whether this is irreparable and irreversible in nature as provided by the statute. The city's position is that there's a beneficial gain that's to the property owner who is advertising conduct that is prohibited by our city code. It affects renting property or holding property out as vacation rental or guest rental, guest accommodations, and it cannot be reversed or repaired. The property is advertised worldwide, and they market a destination that draw people from all over the world for principal special events such as Daytona 500 races, Bike Week, Biketoberfest, and throughout our spring and summer months to the world's most famous beach. The properties may also be marketed to draw to nearby destinations, such as Disney World and Space Coast. But once the properties are advertised, they're never truly unadvertised. The reality of the World Wide Web is that you cannot push back advertisement. You can't push it back into the tube. The information posted today can be printed, saved, forwarded, retweeted, and even copied and posted on other sites. Limiting the city to the only solution to the advertisement is to require that all postings be removed. The information has long-range effects, alluring patrons under contract to participate in unlawful stays in our city. The patrons risk poor health, poor safety and welfare due to unregulated or self-regulated vacation accommodations that patrons enter into at their own risk. One single day of advertising could potentially book a property for the whole year. These promised stays are potentially to the detriment of the patron, and they're definitely to the detriment of the licensed hotels, motels, and lawful vacation rentals that have gone through proper zoning regulation, proper inspections, proper licensing, proper insurance, proper taxation that's required by law. The transient nature of the rentals limit the means of the enforcement typical to identifying advertisements. By the time a code enforcement officer arrives to the properties, the transient patrons typically are gone from the property, or they claim some misleading relationships that are often contradicted by their advertised visitor comments. The monetary effect of these unlawful rentals is tax avoidance, inadequate insurance coverage, unfair business competition against lawful accommodations businesses, and lawful vacation rentals. The community effect is that transient business use within unauthorized residential neighborhoods affect density, parking, noise, and safety. They affect the peaceful enjoyment expected in residential neighborhoods, and they diverge from traditional and reliable residential norms. The city received demands from the business community, and that was to our city commission. And it's led to a request for a strong deterrent to those that are raking in profits, avoiding the local taxes, avoiding zoning requirements, and regulatory controls. We have all seen rentals going for amounts as much as several $1,000s a week and realize substantial fines is the only deterrent tool available. By the time we arrive and say stop, the beneficial gains are already realized. So state law adopted by the city defines vacation rentals to include advertising for transient guests. And so the violations are advertising or, actually renting the properties or holding the properties out for rent through advertisement. Therefore, the city requests a finding that these violations are irreparable or irreversible in nature as provided by the statute. In addition, when we start talking about the fineness of we provide through our statute, through the Florida statute provides as well as our city code, that the magistrate look at several things regarding the fine itself. they look for the amount of the fine, look to the gravity of the violation. Because there's this competitive benefit and competitive edge that gives a special advantage to these types of properties, we would normally ask for a fine up to the maximum fine provided, which is $15,000 when it's warranted. But over time, and we would normally have done that. We've done it for years initially when we started this. But over time, the magistrate has managed to acknowledge and recognize that some people immediately respond and has been willing to provide a smaller fine that is generally $1,000 for people who immediately respond. And so in this case, I believe the report is that this respondent has responded quickly. And so we would ask for the appropriate fine as to that circumstance. And that's all I have, Mr. Magistrate.
Thank you. Mr. Yates, do you have anything further? Yes, sir. Okay. Ms. Gabor, it's your turn now.
The whole purpose of the rental was to help us financially. My father is currently in Ecuador facing a terminal diagnosis. And once we got the cease and desist that very same day, we took down the listing. So, as it is, I'm in the red.
Okay.
This would put me more in the red.
Okay. Do you have anything further?
That's it.
Mr. Yates?
No, sir.
Okay. As Mr. Jackson has stated, when these first started back in, was it 2020 when we started hearing, I started hearing these cases? Maybe 19. I was assessing $15,000 fines because that's what the statute allows up to. And given the gravity of concerns over these rentals, which we had some true horror stories at that time, seemed warranted. And I have, over those years, tried to scale things back to for people who immediately respond. But you can only scale things back so far, and I know that it's been stated that what appears on the platform is not often indicative of all of that's gone on at the property, because reviews are posted by people who choose to post reviews, and there may be many more, I don't know, and that becomes an element of concern from the standpoint of, the fact that someone did post a review means that people did stay there, and that there may have been many others. I don't know, and I don't know that there's any way to ever show one way or another on that. And so we had to essentially decide on essentially a figure that hopefully rewarded people who responded promptly. And that figure has come down to $1,000, and that's what the city has asked for. And that's what has been assessed pretty much consistently now for about the last 2 or 3 years. And my personal feeling is that things should respond, likes should be, or people should be treated equally where there's equal circumstances. So therefore, my determination here is that we'll impose $1,000 fine as opposed to up to the $15,000 that could be assessed under this statute. So with that said, in case number 1, RTL 102491, I find the respondent Pepe L. Gabor to have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1a, and Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibits short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage surrounding neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D, Florida statutes for the property at 265 Columbus Avenue, and to have subsequently come into compliance on September 12th, 2024, and hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again. And if for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, case number 2, RTL 10-2492, Jennifer Uribe and Richard Garrity, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 at 263 Williams Avenue.
She's appearing via Zoom. Can you hear me?
Okay.
I can.
Could you state your name, please?
Jennifer Uribe.
And raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Yates?
The case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned SFR 5. Other accommodations and short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning district. The violation was first observed September 12, 2024, and they were notified the same day. The property stopped actively advertising as of September 19, 2024. The daily posted rate on the advertisement is $89, and the check-in, check-out time shows 3 p.m. and 10 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to this, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $1,000.
All right. Mr. Jackson, do you have anything to add?
Ms. Uribe, my name is Anthony Jackson. I just presented to the magistrate the city's position regarding our request that these be deemed irreparable, and these cases be deemed irreparable and irreversible in nature, as provided in Florida statute. What I do at this point is, if you need me to read that again or present that again to the magistrate, that's fine. I'll go on and present that. If it's something that you heard, if you were on when I presented that, and you don't feel the need for me to present it again, you can waive me presenting it. You'll still have an opportunity to speak to any of those issues if you elect, and address them with the magistrate. But so my question to you is this something that you want to hear again, or if you may have missed it the first time, or is this something that you waive hearing again?
I'll waive. I was listening while you were speaking previously.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Uribe, let me add to that if you take exception with any of Mr. Jackson's statements regarding irreparable and irreversible that he stated earlier, you certainly can raise objections to them. All I am doing is, by your waiving that, is incorporating his statements into the record. And that's the city's argument. It's simply their argument that this is an irreparable and irreversible violation. So therefore, let the record reflect that Ms. Uribe has waived or is allowing Mr. Jackson's previous comments in case number 1, RTL 10-2491, relating to the city's argument that these are irreparable and irreversible violations, and that argument is being incorporated into the record. Okay. Ms. Uribe, it's Mr. Yates, you have anything further?
No, sir.
Okay. Ms. Uribe, it's your turn now.
So I had no idea that short-term rental wasn't allowed in the neighborhood when I purchased the property. I specifically purchased the property for short-term rental in July of this year. And as soon as because I don't live in Daytona, I live in Orlando. And so as soon as my neighbor saw the code violation on the door and called us and let us know about it. So I went up there that day and I immediately called Mr. Yates and he explained to me because I didn't know. And I immediately removed the listing. I removed the listing. It was like a Friday night, so that's probably why it looks like it didn't actually show up for a few days. But I did remove it the day that we found out that it wasn't allowed. And then I went through and did the long-term rental with the city and was, told that we could do long-term rental there. Otherwise, I was going to sell the house. So if there's any way we can reduce that $1,000 fine at all, I would greatly appreciate it. I would never have bought that house if I knew I couldn't do short-term rental.
Ms. Uribe, I understand, but as I don't know if you heard in the previous case, the city had initially felt that a fine in the amount of $15,000 was warranted for this type of violation. In fact, there were some that were levied back in 2020 and 2019. But as more of these cases came before me, ultimately I saw a need to reduce the amount, and I have reduced it down to $1,000, which I believe reflects the seriousness of these types of violations, but also incorporates the speed with which you remedied the issue. And so I am not prone to reduce it any further. This has been the standard that we've kind of moved toward for several years now, and I know everybody would like a smaller fine, but at some point there is a fine that will be levied for things that are violation of city code. So I'm not prone to reduce the amount further below 1,000. So do you have anything further to add, Ms. Uribe?
No, that was all.
Okay.
No, that was all.
Therefore, in case number 2, RTL 10-2492, I find the respondents Jennifer Uribe and Richard Garrity to have been in noncompliance, Article 4, Section 4.1.a, and Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibits short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals. Such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage surrounding neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 263 Williams Avenue to subsequently come into compliance on September 19, 2024, and hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for a hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Case number 3, RTL 10-2493, Sekula and Ashley Jovanovic, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 at 117 South Halifax Avenue.
Hey, can you hear me on Zoom?
Yes, I can.
Could you state your name, please?
Ashley Jovanovic.
And raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Yates?
The case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned RP. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning district. The violation was first observed September 18th, 2024, and they were notified the same day. The property stopped actively advertising as of October 3rd, 2024. The daily posted rate was $80, and the check-in, check-out time is show as 3 p.m. and 11 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to the actions of the property owner, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $1,000.
Okay. Mr. Jackson, do you have anything to add?
Yes. Ms. Jovanovic, this is Anthony Jackson. I'm the attorney for the city of Daytona Beach, and I don't know if you were listening previously. If you were, You may have heard me say that I've presented to the magistrate this position of the city as it relates to a finding, a request that they make a finding of that these violations are irreparable, irreversible in nature, as provided by Florida statute. And what I ask of you is, one, if you've heard me present that, is that something you would like me to present again? If you didn't hear it, if you'd like me to present it again, or if you've heard it and you don't feel the need for me to present it again, are you willing to waive me presenting that and authorize the magistrate to enter my prior presentation?
No, please give your voice a rest here. I know. I heard what you said previously.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Then
Sorry.
let the record reflect that Mr. Jackson's previous argument made in case number 1, RTL 10-2491, regarding the city's argument that these are irreparable and irreversible violations be included in the record of this particular case. Ms. Jovanovic, it's your turn.
Yes, hi. Thank you, guys. I completely understand everything that everyone has said today. The only thing that I will say is that I went through extensive research with everything. As you guys, I'm sure, can pull up, we actually renovated this home, put a lot of money into it from what it was before. And we did have to we were trying to get some type of rental income, but when we were going through the process, I mean, I worked with the chief inspector, did all of the codes, what Mr. Jackson was saying earlier, I completely respected everything, and you guys can pull that up. Throughout the conversations, there must have been a misunderstanding because it was under my impression that we were able to do 30-day plus rentals, which is what I did for the Airbnb. I did not think that that was illegal or unable to be done. So if, they're able to look at the reservation and see that, I mean, I completely respected the city's once on every single process, every single inspection that we've had done. So I understand that they are asking for the $1,000. I would just ask if there's any other grace that we can receive on that, just because we genuinely thought that 30 days was not short term. We thought it was 30 plus was allowed, and that's what we did. And as soon as we received the notification, we took it down immediately.
Okay. Ms. Jovanovic, my charge here is to make decisions based upon the facts and evidence before me. And there have been instances in the past where respondents have come forward and stated, as you have, but they've provided names, dates, corroborating evidence. If you would like to continue the case and put something together along those lines, I'll be happy to consider it, and toward reducing the amount of the fine that is levied. But just general statements that you had researched it and somehow felt that you had been misled are not really sufficient for me to make a finding of a reduction. So I'm offering you the opportunity, if you want to put that information together so that it could be considered by me, I'd be happy to consider it, but that would have to be at another hearing because the city has to be able to consider it as well. And if you would like a continuance, I'll be happy to enter one for you.
No, sir. I'd like to go ahead and just wrap this up.
Okay. All right. So therefore, in case number 3, RTL 10-2493, I find the respondents, Sekula and Ashley Jovanovic, to have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1.a, and Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibits short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and that such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage surrounding the neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 117 South Halifax Avenue, to have subsequently come into compliance on October 3rd, 2024, and hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And how do we pay for the fee and all of that information? When does that come?
I'll be sending you a letter.
Okay.
After, after he signs the orders, I will be sending you a letter with the order that he signs.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
And are we able just to log off now, or is there anything else that's
Yeah.
needed?
Yep, you're free to go.
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Case number 4, RTL 10-2494. Sergey and Irina Gritsev, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 at 273 Lexington Drive.
Sir, could you state your name, please?
Sergey Gritsev.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Yates?
The case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned MFR 12. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning district. The violation was first observed September 20th, 2024, and they were notified the same day. The property stopped actively advertising as of October 18th, 2024. The check-in, check-out time were shown as 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. and 11 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature. Normally, when there's this kind of time difference between notification and the listing being removed, the city would ask for $5,000. But we believe the owner was making an honest effort to remove the listing. It just took him a while. So in this case, the city's only recommending $1,000.
Okay. You have, Mr. Jackson, do you have anything?
Yes, sir. Mr. Sir, my name is Anthony Jackson. I presented previously to the magistrate the city's position regarding irreparable and irreversible in nature to make that type of finding. Is that something you need me to present for the record again, or is it something that you waive me presenting it and allow the magistrate to adopt it into this case?
I don't think so. Yeah, it's everything fine.
You don't need me to say it again?
What are you talking about? You want me to represent me?
No, no.
For what?
I got up.
I heard everything you said. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, when I got up before.
I know.
Okay, that's the only thing. So is it okay for the
I
magistrate
heard it,
to?
yeah, 3 times already, so don't
Okay.
no more.
Mr. Gritsev, Mr. Jackson basically is making the argument on behalf of the city that these violations
No,
are
it's
irreparable,
not-
and
there's-
if you disagree, it's your
I
prerogative. You
disagree
can.
not with this one. I'm just wondering if you know this law, yes? So everyone, every citizen of Daytona Beach cannot do Airbnb.
That's not correct. There
Not
are
correct.
areas.
It means that some.
Allow me to answer you. There are areas in the city where it's zoned and allowed, and you just have to get with the inspector or get with permits if you own property in those zones where it's permitted, which is generally the tourist zones, then you're permitted to do it there. But where it's not permitted, then you'll be in violation of the code.
So it looks like a little bit, discrimination. So some people know where to buy property and live, and they can do it, and somebody cannot. Even though we pay same taxes, even though we do same thing, and looks like we're all equal.
Yeah,
No, it's,
You don't think so?
Mr. Gritsev,
Yeah.
there are some, the city has a zoning code, the land
I
development.
understand, yes, but.
And the land development codes are allowed, I think this went back to the U.S. Supreme Court back in the 1920s, that they can allow certain uses in certain areas. And if you're not in one of those areas, you are not allowed to engage in that use. That's the basis of zoning in the United States.
I understand.
And so it's not discriminatory, but the city does have ways that you can change zoning. You can get zoning changes The only problem that you would have, as I understand from over the years, is there happens to be a statute that controls over city code that says that the city basically can't make those changes. So, I mean, that's the law as it stands, is at least my understanding right now. And so you are not allowed to have a short-term rental on your property.
Yeah,
You're not allowed in,
right now I know, I never knew it before.
well,
This is the problem, so, and.
there's also Florida Supreme Court decisions that say that you are presumed to know the laws of the city that you live in, and the burden falls upon you to have that knowledge, and not upon the city to somehow inform you after you've committed a violation.
But in this case, probably Florida government could make it some agreement with Airbnb, so, and people supposed to provide certain document, you know, they're not against it, so this is, we used to live in Utah, we used to live in Colorado. There's no problem with your own property. So property belongs to me, so why can't I use it? And somebody who lives in the right place can use it.
The problem.
If nobody can use it, so nobody can use it.
The problem, Mr. Gritsev, is there is a hierarchy of government. City is sort of at the bottom. The next level up is county, which really doesn't have anything involved here, and in state. And the state has been, the legislature has been trying to deal with this issue for years. And if you need to probably talk with your state legislator, because ultimately there is a statute that prohibits the city from making changes in that regard. And that is really the root of this problem. Even the mayor has spoken out about that he would like to see the state make changes to the statute. But the city can't do anything until the legislature in Tallahassee makes changes. And I know it sounds convoluted, but that's just the way it is. And the city can't unilaterally make a change that would end up being in conflict with state law. Their state controls, and then the federal law controls most of state law. And so it's a hierarchy.
So,
And
Congress can make any changes, looks like.
Yeah.
But somebody create this law, you know? So I don't think it's a Congress created this, you know, law in Daytona City, exactly. This is a problem, but it's okay, I understand. It's my fault, but, you know, it just looks a little bit strange when people going and sign up. I already heard 4 cases today, 3. So people going to Airbnb and pretend that everything fine. If Airbnb is allowed you to do this, so it means everything not according to the rules and according to the law. And finally, yeah, you figure out that you're going against the law and you have to pay and you have to do all this stuff. Why city or whatever, I don't know, why Florida government has made some agreement with all this stuff, because Florida is a nice place, it's a perfect, beautiful place, and people love to come here, but they always, you know, I had to cancel like 4 or 5 reservations already. And I had to pay for it and everything, and now I have to pay again, only because somebody in the government cannot call Airbnb and ask them to put 2-3 paragraphs, you know, and said, okay, if you live in Florida, you have to provide this one, that's it.
I understand your frustration.
No, it's not, it's not a frustration. It looks like, you know, it's one source to make money from people who just do not familiar with all this.
Well, Mr. Gritsev, even if you were in an area where Airbnbs, and there are a couple small areas, of my understanding, where they're allowed short-term rentals, you would still have to get a license.
I understand. It's not about license. I'm not.
The minute you walked into the down in the
Permits and licenses.
licensing department, or whatever, is it business tax license?
But, well, it's permits and licensing
Permits
department,
and
but they'll get a
licenses, and you
business
said,
tax
I would
receipt.
like a license, they'd say, sorry, you can't get one.
So
Because
this
of
is
where you are.
Completely fine, but my question
You
is,
skipped that
why
step.
do not make agreement with Airbnb? So people like me, for example, they would like to register, and if I would know that I have to get a license, I have to get some blah, 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 maybe I will never do it.
Yeah, so what
It's
I'll,
so easy, you know, just.
If Mr. Gritzeff, I think we've kind of beat that horse to death. And to be honest, I've mentioned before that we had friends in Mexico where you wouldn't have the opportunity to be here being a respondent, looking at a potential fine. You'd be going to jail. And that happens down there. So different countries have different ways, and Airbnb is their own business, and the city has no control over Airbnb.
And to be clear, I have requested that of Airbnb, and they denied me,
Yeah.
just so you know.
Did you?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Oh, so you see, at least somebody did something.
wait,
So, Mr. Gritzeff, do you have anything further you wish to add to do you have anything else you wish to say?
No.
Then, based on the evidence and the testimony from Mr. Yates, I find that there's a violation, but because of your quick reaction, I'm going to assess the $1,000 fine as the other previous respondents were. And again, like I said, if you have real concerns about this, your real beef is with the Florida State Legislature, and talk to your state representative, your state senators, and have them work this out, because nothing can happen at the city level until they do something. So, therefore, in case number 4, RTL 10-2494, I find the respondent Sergey and Irina Gritzeff to have been in noncompliance with Article 4, Section 4.1.a, and Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibits short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and that such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage surrounding the neighborhood occurs time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 273 Lexington Drive, and to have subsequently come into compliance on October 18th, 2024, and hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for a hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Case number 5, RTL 10-2495, Natasha Katrina Griego, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 at 121 Flamingo Avenue, number sign ETAL.
Could you raise or state your name, please?
Natasha Griego.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Yates?
The case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned SFR 5. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning district. The violation was first observed September 25th, 2024, and they were notified the same day. The property stopped actively advertising as of October 1st, 2024. The daily posted rate was $99, and the check-in, check-out time were shown as 3 p.m. and 11 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to the actions of the property owner, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $1,000.
Okay. Mr. Jackson, do you have anything?
yes. Ms. Griego, my name is Anthony Jackson. I don't know if you were in when I presented previously. Do I need to?
No, you do not.
Thank you. Hardly even. Thank you much.
Then let the record reflect Mr. Jackson's arguments regarding the city's position on irreparable and irreversible, which he made in case number 1 RTL 10-2491, which earlier today are hereby incorporated into the record of this proceeding. Okay. Mr. Yates, anything further?
No, sir.
Ms. Griego, anything you would like to say?
Yes, I would like to say that I'm not sure where the lapse in time is, but I received that notice on my door on the 25th, and I unlisted my property that evening when I got home from work. I worked 12-hour shifts. I unlisted my property that evening, and I do have my Airbnb app with me on the phone, which you are welcome to have and look through fully if you would like to. Also, for the record, I also never actually followed through on any reservations. I have the financial records up to show that I never collected any dollars. I was definitely, negligent in not learning the laws of the city that I recently moved into. I do live on the property. I want to maintain the integrity of my neighborhood, and so I would definitely want to comply with everything that was required of me in order to do this in a legal manner. And I do understand that I'm allowed to have 6-month plus rentals, and that's perfectly fine with me. I don't need to do short-term rentals until that comes allowed to me at that time. But yeah, so the total time that my ad was up was less than a week, and I never actually followed through on any bookings. And so is this for, I want to just be clear, am I being fined for advertising or for renting? Because if it's for renting, I have proof that I have not followed through on any rentals.
It would be both. Either one would be a violation, both the advertisement and the rental.
Okay. Mr. Yates, Mr. Jackson, any input from you regarding what Ms. Griego said, that she's indicated that she removed the ad, the next
That
day?
evening,
now-
the 25th of September, I went in and I unlisted that ad.
That's what it is. She unlisted it, so when a property's unlisted but not deleted, it's still viewable if you have the address, which I did. So that would be the lag difference. She didn't delete it until then, or remove it until then. She just
That
delisted
would've-
it.
I understood when I was unlisting it that I was deleting it. That was my understanding. So when I did unlist it immediately that evening, I believed that I was deleting it.
It's a common error.
Okay. Well, I understand, and, but if I understand Mr. Yates, the ad remained up until October 1st.
Yes.
When it was finally taken down. It may have been unlisted on the 25th, but it was there, held out.
Yes, if you had the web address, you could still see it.
But I do again have proof that no bookings were followed through on. I went through Airbnb and formally canceled through them so that I would have, also, show that I'm not playing no games. If I'm not supposed to do it, I'm not going to do it.
And the city agrees with that. We have no evidence that a rental took place, only the
I
advertisement.
would say, Ms. Griego, one of the things that, if you had taken it down even the next day, we would be asking for $1,000. That's just what we do. I mean, it's well within the magistrate's discretion to do otherwise. Our position is that we just try the best to be even on those that are have taken care of it relatively quick. I know you're saying extra quick because it was the same day, but that's within that range of the amount of time that we would ask from our perspective, a minimum of $1,000. It's just once it's advertised, it's advertised. And I understand that once you were notified, and it was only a week, and it seems like you brought a lot of verification to support that. So, but we leave those kind of considerations to the magistrate. That's just our general position.
As I mentioned earlier, I've been hearing these since 2019. And one of the things I have noted throughout that time period is that the websites are not friendly towards cities and entities who are looking for information from them. And so when we get into the details of what's actually going on, the type of corroborating information that I would want to start making the kind of distinctions that you're asking for today are just not available. And I'm sort of put it, again, when I started hearing these were considered serious enough, all of them warranted $15,000 in fines. And I have tried to bring this amount down to reflect the people who responded quickly. And I don't know there's a very difficult time trying to deal with something. For instance, I have no corroboration that there weren't rentals. Unless people place reviews, you start to get into this issue of whether or not they were told not to place reviews so that it looks like, and so I feel like I'm wandering into some kind of minefield where I'm trying to make distinctions that cannot be corroborated by the type of evidence that's being brought before me. And I have felt that trying to be as fair to everybody as possible is to treat everybody pretty much the same way.
So even if I have the website that I will let you freely roam through, that it actually does show here that I have not received any financial earnings. I personally, you know, if I were going to make financial transactions, would want to do it in a way that I was protected. So if I were going to follow through this, I would have used the website, but it shows here that I have no money made, and you can look all through for the ever, no money ever made, because they pay you through the app.
Ms. Griego, I might be willing to consider that, but if the city, I'm here to look at the evidence that's presented, and I know that evidence that comes from the internet is capable of all kinds of manipulations, but I don't know enough about that. That's not my job. If you could convince Mr. Yates, in fact, that you had generated nothing from this, and I could feel comfortable that in fact that was the case, I might be prone. But at this point, if you wish it to be continued and you can carry on this discussion with Mr. Yates, I'll be happy to continue it. But this is really not the, I'm dealing with issues. I know once you get into internet stuff, whether or not it's real or not is something that is beyond my ability to assess. And I'm looking to the city and its people who are knowledgeable about these things to advise me on that. And I'm not hearing anything at this point.
Well, if I can just say this, Mr. Magistrate. One, I appreciate Ms. Griego's calmness and respect to the process. Nevertheless, the city's position, it's really a position we don't want to be in terms of trying to, because people are nice, say, okay, they're okay, and someone who may have a similar situation that we can't verify or don't know. And even with everything that she's giving us, there are so many ways and loops, and I'm not disbelieving Ms. Griego at all, but there's just so many ways and so many loops and so many other ways to present that we just, from the city's perspective, especially when we start talking about minimums, we believe that we're consistent enough just to say, if there's an exception, the exception will seldom be on whether or not they made any money. And so from the city's perspective, we just don't really feel the desire or need or will to move back and forth as it relates to our minimum. As I said, obviously, our minimum is just our request, and an ultimate decision is yours. So I'm not saying we oppose it or we object, but we're just not willing to acquiesce.
Well, I would be willing to consider it under these circumstances, but again, I have to be sure that the exception, A, doesn't swallow the rule, and B, that the evidence that is being presented is in fact capable of being presented. Because again, I have seen so much stuff with respect to, over time, with respect to Airbnb and what they disclose and what they don't disclose. I don't know what the truth is. And I'm not sure that I feel comfortable with evidence that comes from Airbnb that it's in fact factual or it's correct. And I'm not trying to, I'm not, Ms. Grego, I'm not trying to say that it's not necessarily what you're saying is true. What I'm saying is I need some type of corroboration that somehow that there was a way I knew that that information you're providing, that one, you immediately reduced, you took the site down, and two, that you had not earned any money and that there isn't some way that Airbnb can hide, or because once I opened that door, if there are other people who have earned money but are able to somehow use Airbnb as, again, it's O's and ones. That's the internet, and I want to see hard and fast evidence, and I'm not feeling comfortable. I need to feel comfortable with the evidence that is. And again, if you can sit down with Mr. Yates and convince him of it, that's fine. But otherwise, if that's not something that anyone's willing to do, then I'm left to treat everybody the way, in the same fashion.
Well, I will say this, I have a lot of trust in Mr. Yates' expertise. I don't think it changes our recommendation if he believes through his expertise that he can tell you what you need to know from those documents. I don't believe he can, but if he believes he can, I trust and believe in it.
There would be no way for me to guarantee that no one stayed at that house in exchange for money. That's not something I would be willing to say, and I can't think of a piece of evidence that could exist that could show me that no one stayed at that house in exchange for money. Because even if you showed no Airbnb balance, the fact that you've advertised, that's what we talk about, it allows you to go outside of the platform. So even if you showed that you made no money on that platform, that's why we key in on these advertisements as so important to these hearings.
Okay. Well, Ms. Grego, that has been my problem, and that is that if what you may say is true, but I need the corroboration of it. And as Mr. Yates has said, is saying now, if I understand it correctly, is that corroboration you're providing is not verifiable, so to speak.
So, 2 more questions, and then I will end it and let you find me $1,000. Number 1, what would you consider acceptable evidence? Because I just want to state that I occupy the property. I have the main house and a house in the back. I was living in the main house. My nephew was living in the apartment. He was living there for a very long time. You know what I'm saying? He just moved out. He attends Emory-Riddle. He just moved out into an apartment with his girlfriend. I decided to move from the house up to the apartment because the apartment needs some work before I rent it out again. It was built in the late 40s. I want to update the wiring. I want to put a safer staircase, even though it has been inspected, because my grandmother was actually a real estate agent. That's who I bought the house from, and she rented the apartment up there. So the house barely became open and available. It was my ignorance, without understanding the law's decision, to, decide to occupy the space in the meantime while I was, doing these repairs. And I'm going to still do that legally with the 6 months and 1 day. I have it on, I made the lease, it says 6 months and 1 day, just to make sure that I'm in compliance, And I can get statements from my nephew, my neighbors. I have a neighbor across the street who's got cameras all over the place. What would suffice as evidence?
That's what I'm saying. None of that in the end can make me say, I know no one stayed there.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much. I'll pay my fine.
All right. Therefore, in case number 5, RTL 10-2495, I find the respondent, Natasha Katrina Griego, who have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1.a and Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibits short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage to the surrounding neighborhood occurs time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 121 Flamingo Avenue, number sign capital ETAL. And will subsequently come into compliance on October 1, 2024, and hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. Thank you.
All right. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
Case number 6, RTL 10-2496, Opulent Home Healthcare, LLC, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2, at 1249 Sewanee Road.
I don't think that's your case yet. No, just have a receipt right there. You can just sit right there. That's fine.
You're not here.
Maybe he wants one.
Yeah, I was like, oh, does he have both?
I think his case 7.
Okay. Is anyone here on behalf of Opulent Home Healthcare? Or has Opulent Home Healthcare asked to be on Zoom? No. So there is no respondent present?
No, but I have spoken with them as of Friday and told them that they did need to appear. They have not responded.
Go down.
Okay. Then the respondent not being present, Mr. Yates, will you present your case?
Yep. There you go.
The case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned SFR 5. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning district. The violation was first observed October 3rd, 2024, and they were notified the same day. The property stopped actively advertising as of October 18th, 2024. The daily posted rate was $203, and the advertisement displayed 3 reviews. The check-in, check-out time were shown as 4 p.m. and 11 a.m. This is the 4th violation at this address by this owner. The first being RTL 03-2432 on March 26, 2024. The next, RTL 06-2460 on June 25, 2024. And then RTL 07-2470 on July 23, 2024. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and due to the actions of the property owner, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $15,000. And the last noted guest was there on October 17th with a bike trailer and 3 bikes, and they were gone by October 22nd, 2024.
Okay. Mr. Yates, you said you spoke with them about this hearing?
Yes. Yes, sir. He asked if he still needed to come because he took it down. I said, absolutely, sir.
In your conversation, did you happen to mention that there had been 3 previous violations?
Yes, sir.
And what was the response?
Basically, he's arguing our ability to enforce it, and he said that I was harassing him with my notices, and that his legal department would get back to me, but they have not.
Okay. Do you know, and if you don't, please let me know.
Absolutely.
There have been 3 previous violations, and I would expect that a fine was levied in each of those?
Yes, sir.
Have any of those been paid?
No, sir.
Okay.
Well, I had hopes that I wouldn't be presenting again. I think it'd be necessary for me to present in this case, Mr. Magistrate.
Yeah, I think so. Please do.
Again, this is presenting the city's position regarding irreparable and irreversible in nature, as provided in Chapter 162.09, subsection 1D of the Florida statutes. And the city's position is that these violations are irreparable and irreversible in nature, and that's because the beneficial gain to the property owner is through advertising conduct that is prohibited by the city's code. In this case, also, we've actually were fortunate enough to actually identify and confirm actual use of the property in violation of the code. The effects in renting property or holding out property as vacation rental cannot be reversed or repaired. Property is advertised worldwide, marketing destinations that draw people from all over the world for principal special events such as the 500 races, Bike Week, Biketoberfest, and throughout the spring and summer months for the world's most famous beach. In this case, we have use on actual Biketoberfest itself. The properties may also be marketed as a draw to nearby destinations, such as Disney World and the Space Coast. Once the properties are advertised, they're never truly unadvertised. The reality is that you cannot push back an advertisement back into the World Wide Web. You just, once it's out, it's out. Information posted today can be printed, reprinted, saved, tweeted or X'd, or whatever we call it now, and even copied and posted on other sites. Limiting the city to the only solution for the advertisement is to require that all postings be removed. The information has long-range effects, alluring patrons under contract to participate in unlawful stays in our city. The patrons risk poor health, safety, and welfare due to unregulated or self-regulated vacation accommodations that patrons enter into at their own risk. A single-day advertising can potentially book a property for a whole year. These promised stays are potentially to the detriment of the patron, and definitely they're to the detriment of licensed hotels, motels, and lawful vacation rentals that have gone through proper zoning regulations, proper inspections, proper licensing, proper insurance, and proper local taxations required by law. The transient nature of the rentals limit the means of the enforcement, typically to our inspectors having to identify it by advertisements. Often, by the time our inspectors get there to the property, the transient patrons typically are gone from the property, or they claim some misleading relationships that are often contradicted by their visitors' guest comments. The monetary effect of these unlawful rentals is that they avoid the local taxes, the inadequate insurance coverage, unfair business competition against lawful accommodation business and lawful vacation rentals. The community effect is that transient business use within unauthorized residential neighborhoods affect the density, parking, noise, and safety. They affect the peaceful enjoyment expected in residential neighborhoods, and they diverge from traditional and reliable residential norms. And so, in response to demand from the business community to our city commission, the commission has asked for strong deterrence to those that are breaking in profits, avoiding local taxes, avoiding zoning requirements, and regulatory controls. We've seen rentals going for amounts as much as several $1,000s a week and realize substantial fines is the only deterrent tool available. By the time we arrive and say stop, the beneficial gains are already realized. And state law adopted by the city defines vacation rentals or guest rentals to include advertising for those transient guests. Therefore, the city requests a finding that these violations are irreparable or irreversible in nature as provided through the statute. As far as the fine itself, the city has adopted the what's also in Florida statute concerning The manner in which we evaluate the fine, the maximum fine is $15,000. What we ask the magistrate to look at and what the statute provides is for us to first look at the gravity of the violation. In this case, it's something that impacts communities, impacts neighborhoods, and it's an unfair advantage of all other businesses that are doing it the right way. We're asked to look at the efforts of the respondent to come into compliance. This record shows, based on the testimony of our inspector, that they made it clear to the violator that they have a history of doing this over and over again, and that they cannot do it, but their efforts, even though for the moment they may pull it down, obviously with 3 prior violations, this being fourth, shows that they're not willing to keep it down. They have no effort to be in or remain in violation. And lastly, it asks for the history, and as said, just the history of having repeat violation over and over again has indicate that this business has decided this is a cost of doing business, and the city will be more than ready and willing to take additional actions provided by law to bring this property into compliance.
Thank you. It does seem to me that based on the, well, let me just ask the clerk one question. Was notice provided to the Opulent Home Healthcare LLC of this hearing? We have Mr. Yates' testimony that he spoke with the respondent.
I also posted the property for this case.
Posted the property.
He posted the property, I think,
If you zoom out of this photo, it should have the date.
yep. He posted the property on a, I don't think that we've ever gotten anything back from any of the addresses that we've sent, and we've sent them to a lot of different places.
Okay.
Which includes the address that's on the property appraiser's record?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
And the Sunbiz registered agent.
As well as, okay, the registered agent.
And I think there was a Wyoming registered agent as well, since it's a Wyoming corporation that we sent it to when we first started doing this, so,
Okay, well, I'm showing Omaha, Nebraska,
yes.
but there's also Wyoming. Or is Wyoming the next case?
I think Wyoming is the next case.
Wyoming's the next case. I think it's Nebraska.
Okay, so the respondent certainly is aware of today's hearing.
Yes.
Is aware of this code provision, and is apparently is not here and has not submitted anything to state why they're not here, excuse or request to continue or anything of that nature.
I have gotten a call from the registered agent, but when I called them back, they've never called me back, so.
Okay. I would expect at some point the city might want to take some action on this.
I'll wait to hear from the client, but I'm sure we probably will.
What is the, I'm just curious on is this Airbnb?
VRBO
VRBO.
was the last one they were on.
Is there a nightly rental? Post?
Yes, $203.
$203. So weekly rental on that would be about $1,400.
Yeah. Especially because that doesn't include taxes and fees that'll be added to it, and there usually are quite a few fees.
Okay. Well, based on the testimony and the evidence, this is clearly a violation and clearly falls within the scope of irreparable and irreversible. So I will enter the order. Case number 6, RTL 10-2496, I find the respondent, Opulent Home Healthcare LLC, to have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1.a, and Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibit short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, Such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and the damage to the surrounding neighborhood occurs time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 1249 Suwanee Road. And as of this date, has yet to come into compliance, and hereby order that respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $15,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statute.
And Mr. Magistrate, if I could just make one clarification, I believe you said they did not come into compliance.
They
I
did
think
come into
it's back-
compliance today.
They
The
did.
ad is currently down and the property has been vacated.
Oh, okay.
But based on the history, it doesn't change our recommendation.
Right.
Then I will amend my order to state that they have subsequently come into compliance on October, is that 18th?
22nd?
22nd, yeah.
22nd. Well, that's today.
Yeah.
2024. But based upon the previous 3 violations, the fact that they've come into compliance at this point doesn't really mean a whole lot.
No.
They should have understood the first time that they were fined, the second time, or the third time. We're now, what, on the 4th time?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So, and if you could make that change to the order to reflect that they finally did come into compliance as of today's date, October 22nd, 2024.
Yep.
I mean,
Sorry,
October 22nd.
22nd, that's
Yes.
correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Magistrate, before we go on, if I can ask if we could take a brief recess so I can do what people do on recesses.
Okay, it being, what is it, 2:33, I hereby call this session of the special magistrate proceeding to be in recess, and we will reconvene, what, quarter of, or?
Oh, I just need a few minutes to make my run.
Depends on who's in the women's bathroom.
Let's just do, at 2:45.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
2:45, it being 2:45, I hereby call the October 22nd, 2024 Special Magistrate proceeding back in order. And the next case we're going to hear is one that's out of order, but it was a continued case from last time. Case number 8, RTL 09-2486. The respondent being A. Denise Moore, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 at 100 Kingbird Circle, number 1. And the minutes reflect that there was an issue, Ms. Moore, with your being able to take down the advertisement, and you were to get with Mr. Yates and to work things out.
Down. I was stunned when he said it wasn't. I'm the one that almost had a heart attack standing here.
Yes.
Ms. Moore, could you state your name and let me swear you in?
Oh, yes, please.
Go ahead and just state your name.
Ann Denise Moore.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Yates, can you bring me up to date on things?
Yes, sir. The same day as the hearing, she was able to get in contact with Airbnb and completely remove all listings and all evidence of it online. In light of that, the city would like to revise our recommendation to a $1,000 fine.
Okay. That's good with me.
I guess the next thing is, Ms. Moore, do we need me to repeat the city's position?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Therefore, based upon the testimony, evidence, I will issue the following order in this matter. In case number 8, RTL 09-2486, I find the respondent A. Denise Moore to have been in noncompliance with Article 4, Section 4.1.a and Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibit short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals, and that such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner and damage surrounding neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D, Florida statutes, for the property at 100 Kingbird Circle, number 1, and to subsequently come into compliance. Mr. Yates, can you give me a compliance date?
Yes, September 24th, 2024.
September 24, 2024. And hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for a hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. And also let the record reflect that Mr. Jackson's comments regarding irreparable and irreversible are hereby incorporated, that had been issued earlier on that date. What date was that? That was September 24th.
Oh, okay.
Correct?
Well, she was here today. She could.
Oh, we'll do that one today
Okay.
and make it simpler.
You were here when you were here when I presented?
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Yep.
At least one of the times.
Okay,
Two
that
at a
were
time.
previously
And last time in
made
September.
on case number 1, RTL 10-2491, she has agreed that those arguments are hereby incorporated into the record of this proceeding.
Thank you.
And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just go.
You just go.
She'll send you an invoice.
Yeah, I heard that. I was going to ask that question, but I heard that somebody else asked it. All right, thank you very much.
All right. Let's get to our last case. Case number 7, RTL 09-2484, Chestnut LFTY 0329 DAO LLC, cited for failure to correct violations of Land Development Code, Article 4, Section 4.1.a, Article 5, Section 5.2.a.2 at 402 North Wild Olive Avenue. Mr. Yates, this is a case that was continued from last time, and I know there were discussions between the respondent and the city And Mr. Yates, if you can bring me up to date on.
Well, that'd be sworn.
Oh, is he? Sir, if you would not mind being sworn in?
State your name, please.
Calix Defoe.
Slow.
Calix
Ah, okay.
Defoe.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to provide is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And the relationship to
Owner manager.
Chestnut. I'm sorry.
Owner.
Owner. Okay.
Okay. Why don't we go through this the normal process, Mr. Yates, if you wouldn't mind presenting? And I know that there's some other issues, and then we can get into those once we get this preliminary stuff.
If I may, Mr. Magistrate, just for clarification, even though we said we would try and get together, we really never had an opportunity with the storm and the different things. I know Mr. Couch did try and contact you once, and I know I didn't get back to him. He just asked for me to give him a call. I was hoping he was sending me documents, but we never got there. So, yeah.
The documents were previously sent. I did call your office, and I did also.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I acknowledge that. And what you're saying apparently is we can't seem to get to those anymore. So
What's the question?
one of your
Your Dropbox.
your Dropbox or the link or whatever it is, we couldn't get to it.
Oh, not only I send you a link, but I also sent all the official documents.
Okay, I didn't get that
Mr.
one.
Yates, and then.
Okay, I didn't get that, but I don't think it's essential for what we have to handle today, in my opinion. We'll go on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Yates, and Mr. Dufault, I may end up continuing this if it appears that there are documents or whatever that might have a bearing on this, on what your arguments are. So I just want to keep, maybe it can be resolved right now. So Mr. Yates, if you could tell me what's going on.
The case before you is a zoning violation. This case was field generated. The property is zoned RP. Other accommodations known as short-term rentals are not permitted in this zoning district. The violation was first observed August 22nd, 2024, and they were notified the same day. The property is still actively advertising as of today. The daily posted rate was $174, and the check-in, check-out time shows 3 p.m. and 10 a.m. These actions are irreparable and irreversible in nature. However, due to the complicated nature of this case, the city is requesting a one-time fine of $1,000 and for him to discontinue all advertisements and rentals immediately.
Okay, Mr. Yates, you've posted an advertisement. Is what website or whatever?
That's VRBO, but he is also on Airbnb currently.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Have anything that you wish to add to this proceeding?
Well, let's start with and I'm gonna call you Mr. Cal because your name is a little challenging for me.
Cal is good.
Yes. I think you're here to hear me make my presentation as it relates to the city's position regarding irreparable and irreversible. Is that something I need to present again, or you waive me presenting that?
You can be
and authorize the magistrate to enter that into the record.
That can be waived.
Okay.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Jackson's comments that were made today in case number 1, RTL 102491, Pepe El Gabor, regarding the city's arguments that such violations are irreparable and irreversible, is hereby incorporated into the record of this proceeding.
And just for the record, just for clarification, normally based on the time period, we would be asking for the substantial fine. However, we did stipulate and agree that he would maintain his status quo while we looked at the information. And although we didn't get the documents he intended in full, we did do some looking, and we believe that we can proceed and be able to make a ruling. We'll see what happens, but we believe we can on the issue of whether or not he was in violation through the advertisement.
Okay. Do you have anything further, Mr. Jackson?
Not at this time.
Mr. Yates?
No, sir.
I'm kind of curious. My understanding is that there were some unusual circumstances.
Yes, definitely.
And I'd like to hear, is it Dufault?
Yes.
Mr. Dufault?
Mr. Defoe, yes.
Okay,
Not that hard, right?
Yes.
okay. As to what these circumstances are.
All right, very good. So there are two giant companies that have millions of dollars that are doing just what I'm doing, but they are in the $1 million scales. So they are called Picasso. So they own a certain property here, even here in Daytona Beach, and they split it into 8, and then they list them as vacational rental. So each one share could be $425,000. Not a lot of people can afford that. So they are available and operating there, and Mr. Yates cannot get access to them but they are legal because whoever visit them, they are owners and they pay taxes. I did get in touch with Mr. Yates and then forwarded all the document that shows that the structure of our ownership allow the people that are there to be owners. Me and my family will visit the property while it is listed. So we are owners and we take care of the property. So I did forward also the structure, all the documents. And then Mr. Yates says, hey, he spoke to a lawyer and filed all the documents. And after that, I didn't hear anything. So when I came here for the first time, and then we asked that we resolve this between us, I reached out to see if I can answer some questions. But unfortunately, I don't know. I was sick, but I did make an effort to call the office and send a forward email. So I'm here to answer any particular questions. I did comply to the city by changing the structure of the posting that shows that the only people that can stay there are exclusive members. If you're not a member, you cannot stay at this particular property. And the owners pay taxes, insurance, just like anybody that owns a property. And then every time that we get hit by bad timing, even the fence that are not mine, I have pictures that are not mine, to keep the area nice, I go in there and pay for them. That happened already 3 times. So the owners are vested into the property as well.
Let me see if I understand this. Let's just take, there's one property. It's owned by a company called Picasso.
Well, yes, it's owned by Picasso, and then if we can Google it there, but they take it, well, they are doing it in the $1 million aspect. So they take it and divide it into 8, and then anybody who wants to own a vacation place.
So there are 8 entities that own Picasso.
That doesn't have anything specific directly to do with them. He's utilizing or expressing Picasso as a similar model.
It's a similar model.
Which I don't know anything about Picasso or.
Well, we can do a quick.
And I'm not sure if it would be relevant.
I'm trying to understand, because I think
So
what your argument hinges on is the peculiar corporate arrangement.
So let's say.
So I want to be able to understand.
So let's say me and my family, we are 8 of, and we say, oh, you know what, we live in New Jersey, and we want to buy a place in chilling in Daytona Beach area.
So if you, let me see, I'm starting to, there's a property, let's call it property A, okay? I guess if we were in law school, we call it Black Acre, or White Acre, or Green Acre, one of those.
Black Acre is fine.
Just like being in Property 101, okay? And that property is then subdivided, the ownership, there are 8 separate owners of that property.
Yes.
Okay.
So they hold a title, and then they own 1/8 of that property. So therefore, it's their own property, and they can come and visit and stay however they want to see fit.
Okay.
So that's the same structure here.
What do they need to be on Airbnb or VRBO for?
All right, so for this Picasso, they are a bigger company. They don't need Airbnb because they just advertise on their website and they have millions of dollars. I don't have millions of dollars.
But what are they advertising for? If there's 8 individuals,
So they use their own platform where an owner can log into that and then book a vacation and then come, depending on availability, and do that. I don't have $1 million yet. Hopefully I'll be able to do my own website. But Airbnb is a free platform that allow people to be able to do that. So that's why it's on Airbnb. I do have a direct booking for owners, and they can call and say, hey, I'm coming in to do that. So hence the Airbnb. And I did update the listing. If he wants to show that, it'll show that this is a vacation home. Only owners can stay there, and it is exclusive to owners.
I'm still confused. If there are X number of owners, let's just keep it so we don't get into those people are going to divvy up the ownership of that home over the course of a year. I take it they're not staying there concurrently. So if you've got 8 owners, one owner would stay there for a week, and then the next owner would stay for the next week.
Depending on the calendar. Let's say they don't necessarily have to stay on a weekly basis, but that's their place. Whenever they want to stay, they can stay. So for example, me right now, if I say, hey, babe, let's go on a vacation, Daytona Beach or whatever, we drive our car, we go over there, and then stay for a few days, which we did. I wanted to take the kids to the lagoon.
The VRBO listing is essentially a way of trying to tell the other owners that this property is taken for a certain period.
Exactly, to use the calendar to be able to.
It's a calendaring
It's
device.
a calendar, yes. So they will be able to see that this is blocked that way and that way.
I'd ask if the IT can give us the advertisement itself. Can you put that up?
Yes, please, if you can go to, you can go to Airbnb.
No, I'm not talking about pay. I'm talking about the advertisement.
Yes, if you can go to
the one I'm looking at in front of the post.
I don't know if this one is still active.
But that's what we cited. That's what we cited you concerning, and that's what we're here
So
for.
I did agree with him when he called me, and that's when I maintained communication with him, because there's a lot of stuff.
If I may, Mr. Magistrate, the inquiry that Mr. Dufault was making is, what can he do that's approved? That's a whole different question on whether he was in violation of the code. He posted, he had this violation, this advertisement.
Yes.
It looked like a duck and it quacked like a duck.
That's kind of where I was headed.
Yeah, it's an advertisement for short-term rental.
If somebody in Boise, Idaho saw that.
East Wyoming, Boise. Oh, okay.
Yes.
We can go Boise, though. Anywhere.
So, for example,
Yeah.
even people, for example,
Allow him to ask, Mr.
even people right now that even book on a VRBO, right? When they doing that because of the era that we're living in, they still say when they're speaking to other people, I stayed at an Airbnb, because it's becoming so common. So just having say, well, it looks like this. As a businessman, my goal is to be able to function within what the city would allow me to do. And the cases that I'm presenting in front of the city, so for example, the business structure, I can show you the documentation that the business was registered as that structure even before the listing. Now, the listing may have verbiage that violate the city's code, and then, but I have documentation prior to that being listed that this business structure was already registered as a.
The business, you talk about your DAO LLC.
Yeah. So
there's no entity which you can provide that's an acceptable registered entity in this state of Florida.
Yes, it is.
Where?
Except
I went to the sites, I couldn't find it.
Well, it will not be registered in because it's not registered in Florida.
Aren't you
It's
doing
registered
business
in
here?
Wyoming? Huh?
Aren't you doing business here?
Yes, but you can do business as a foreign entity in Florida. A lot of people are doing that.
Registered as a foreign entity, it's a registered as a foreign entity. I don't see that registration either.
So if, for example, there's failure to register, then I can bring that to compliance. But however,
But those are future issues. That doesn't relate really to our current issue, which is that you were in violation of the code, which we're asking for $1,000 fine on that violation.
yes. But however, I want to position myself in a way to continue to operate in the city that I
You work that out with the city if there's a way to work it out, or you go at your own risk with
definitely.
some future.
And I did agree when he approached me on the. I did remain in communication with him and give him email and have that communication to say, hey, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Because right now you're mentioning not being registered. Okay, I'll go in and do that because the idea is to be in compliance with the city.
Yeah, Mr. Defoe, if I may, Mr. Magistrate, I don't think it's any different than what we've seen all day and or on a typical basis. There's things that needed to be done that weren't done, and that's why you were in non-compliance, and we're asking for you to be fined as to that. I know you want to make modifications and try and make it fit, and if you have means that you believe through legal advice and assistance to help you make it fit, you have that lawful right to do that.
Yes,
I don't see how you can make it fit, but that's not up to me to have to see. I don't have to see it. What I have to see is that when you come back before us, that you're not in violation of our code.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
I would like to see it so he doesn't come back as
exactly.
well. And one thing, and maybe why, it sounds to me that you have, and again, I want to try to understand all this. You have a bunch of owners who own a property. They're joint owners.
Yes.
Would that be correct?
Yes.
And let's say you have a house and you have 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A single-family residence.
Yes.
A single-family residence.
And 10 people owns it.
And 10 people own it.
So they all hold title, pay taxes, and then when they fill out taxes, they're gonna report that to the.
And Picasso are a single-family residence as well?
What happened?
Your Picasso example.
Single residence. Yes.
Okay, I'm just interested. I never looked at it.
Okay, you've got a house, and you have 10 separate owners, and they are essentially sharing this structure.
Yes.
Okay, a couple things come to mind. One is, and I don't, something just, maybe I'm just going to throw out, what's the difference between that and sort of a timeshare?
Yes, a timeshare, you're not really deeded as a timeshare.
That's not true.
Yeah, no, they have deeded
You actually
timeshares.
have a deed
Yeah.
Yes,
on a timeshare.
but it's a different, deed. I own a timeshare.
I hadn't
own
seen your
several.
deed. I don't know that exists.
Yeah, so I own a timeshare. As a matter of fact, this argument has been made that if you own this, it cannot be a timeshare because of the structure of the deed. So for example, if you have a timeshare, so in your deed, it gives you like a specific week or a specific timeshare of the ownership.
Okay.
Gives you a time
As an
period in
owner-
which you can.
No, as an owner, so for example, each owner can have more time than the other one depending on their availability, which is different than a.
I've been kind of mulling this through, and at some point, if you're not a timeshare and you have all these people on deed who could occupy it,
It's a temporary.
doesn't it become a multifamily
Well, it's a lease.
property? And so you lose that you suddenly become a multifamily. I'm just throwing these out. I'd like to see you successful, but I'm also looking at the things that I would consider. You've now inserted a multifamily structure into a single-family neighborhood, so you got a zoning violation.
Well, that's why I also contacted the zoning department to see what my property is being zoned for. And even one of that I spoke to Mr. Yates, that I also have the option of having close to 8 people living in the property, even as a structure of community living.
I seem to recall there was a case a long time ago somewhere out in the Midwest under the Fair Housing Act, where 8 unrelated individuals could still be considered a family under the Fair Housing Act.
Exactly. So there's,
City is
there's
6.
another company that's doing just,
This city is 6.
It was 6 or 8. I don't know.
I don't know, yeah.
there's another company that's actually doing just that, which is Pad Split, right there doing just that, renting by the, yes, right there.
The multi-million-dollar company versus what it do.
Exactly, but the
So-
law applies to the multi-million-dollar company
Except-
as it applies to me as a broke person, entrepreneur.
So you're saying if I go on that company and pull them on the
If you-
site,
yes.
I will find their, not only on, not
The
Google.
only difference is that they don't advertise on Airbnb. If you
Yeah.
find them on Google right now, you'll see Pad Split, and if you look at the map,
Yeah.
you'll see that they're on.
Not asking about Google, as far as registered entity. They're
Yeah,
registered
they're not
entity.
registered in Florida. I'm sure they have their legal team that allows them to have a
Well,
registered agent.
I mean, I don't know if this is evidentiary, but it's okay.
Can you spell the name of
What
that
I'm trying-
company?
Pad Split,
You know,
Yes.
P-A-D, and then Split.
If I could, just
If
to,
I could,
DA.
Mr. Yates, before you
oh,
get
yes,
to
sir.
that, the one thing I'm having a problem with, and I suspect the entity that you mentioned initially, what's the name of it?
Picasso?
Picasso. Do they have their own website that is dedicated to their
Yes.
owners?
Yes, and as soon
Okay.
as I have the money,
Well, the minute you go to VRBO or Airbnb, you're now on a site that is really not intended for that use. It's
so
a
that's
short-term
so,
rental.
so that's the argument that I want to pose, because those websites have changed where you can list as a midterm, and then he knows that as well, that you can have midterm on Airbnb. So things are changing. As soon as the city or people doing regulation, Airbnb is changing to the point that you can have your Airbnb and list it there for 6 or 7 months. As a
My understanding is Airbnb is a business that makes its money off of arranging rentals.
Yeah, so now they
and
are
if-
doing a midterm.
If they have a situation where the people are not going through them because they're owners, they're not paying rent.
So
They're going in, and so where does Airbnb make any money out of this? And I find it hard to believe that they would do this as a convenience.
So the same way, the same way the lady, I mean, many people say their Airbnb is not doing their part, which is to educate people. The same way also, I'm just taking advantage of the fact that I can list that there and then enjoy their platform as for the advertisement. But
I've had this arise before with families who want to have like a house,
calendar.
and they try to use Airbnb for scheduling purposes, and that's not, that is a site that is specifically designed for short-term rentals, and it is not people may be able to misuse it as a convenience for making arrangements on the family house and who's going to be there. But if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, I'm going to think it's a duck.
And then that's why I would like to, if we can show the website to see that it is, and if we can bring it up so you can take a look, because that's
What I'm saying is, it sounds to me that what you said is this Picasso has its own website, which is for its own users, and therefore it's not a rental website. And misusing a rental website, how does anyone know that it's not being used for rental purposes? Mr. Yates pulls it up and he sees there's this, and somebody says, well, I've been there, and it starts to become, and I don't think Airbnb intends that its site's going to be as a convenience for just the public at large. It's a business.
and they
And
do
it's
get-
hard for me to imagine a business wanting to do something just for convenience.
Yeah, they're
It
not
sounds
gonna-
like you've got an idea, but you probably need a dedicated website for somebody to develop, and then you may be able to make that work. But right now, trying to take and graft your process onto a site that is specifically for short-term rentals, makes it look like a short-term rental.
Yeah, so far Airbnb has allowed me to do that structure. They haven't taken it down, and then and that's why. So, for example, if we can show the listing what it reflects, so Airbnb reads it and they see exactly what I'm doing with it, and they gave their approval because they see the risk, they see the listing, they see the changes, and they see the protocol and the rules that are in there. So,
But that's presumptuous. Just because they hadn't taken it down doesn't mean they approve of it. They may not even be looking at it.
they do approve.
They
of it
contacted you.
because-
You have a document that says they approved of it?
Well, it's on their side, and I am in contact with them. They every time that I make a change, so they see that change, and I'm in contact.
So they
with
say,
them.
"Dear Mr. Defoe, we appreciate and approve."
As a matter of fact, I just got a text right now congratulating me as a member. So the idea is that I want to be in.
That's not the same thing.
Well, I want to be in compliance with the city. So as someone who's an owner of the property, if they're staying there, so that's the question that I asked Mr. Yates and the lawyer as well. If they pay taxes, if they pay insurance, if they hold title as an owner, are they in violation of the city's law? Now, if the city's changing the law to bend this structure, I would be happy to accept that. But however, as we make sure that, hey, there's certain things that the city, we can't change the law, I'm just making sure that I'm in compliance with the law. The people that are staying there, just like me and my wife, they are owners and they value the property. And then everything that was presented by you, we are completely against any of those. So the question is,
I
as
think
an
you
owner, I don't think that I'm in violation of the
I
city's
think you
law.
start with proof of ownership. I mean, you have people there.
The proof of ownership, I forwarded to you, and I have a copy here.
Oh,
so that you can see.
And what did you forward? What? I'm sorry. I'm just
Do you want-
asking.
do you want me to-
I'm
want me
not- No, you don't need to bring it. Just tell me.
I forwarded the registration, the operating agreement, and I forwarded the DAO. So all of that is there. I forwarded it to Mr. Yates, and he told me that he forwarded it to you. So as an owner, if I happen to stay there, I'm not violating the city. And then if I put the right verbiage there to let people know that you can't stay at that property unless you're an owner, then I'm not violating the
I
city.
kind of remember reading something about temporary ownership.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
All right. So as an owner, anybody can decide, just like if I buy a house with you and you say, well, I don't want to do business with you anymore, you can say, well, I want my name to be removed. So in that case, I would have to buy you out. Right?
That's not what I remember reading. So and I'm not sure what.
That's why I said.
I thought just help me. Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought your temporary membership says that after a certain time period you can convert it from temporary to permanent.
So when somebody wants to buy into the ownership, they have the right to buy it. Now, because this one is something that is on the blockchain, somebody can go even right away become an owner of the property because they don't have to go to the city and then record that. So it's on the blockchain. It's a cryptocurrency type of ownership. So anybody can just click
it's
a
a
button.
floating out here piece of. Okay, I'm sorry. Go on.
But to get ownership of it, you can go in and just like you buy Tesla, you click on it and you buy it.
So it's
And
a
then
conveyance.
If tomorrow you want to sell it, you can sell the share as well.
Mr. Defoe, let me kind of cut this short. This is a hearing.
Yes.
And it's really not a discussion of what you can and can't do, because what you can and can't do is ultimately determined by the city and its planning department.
Exactly.
And if they feel comfortable, then you don't come here. If they feel uncomfortable or they tell you that there's problems, then you come here. But right now, we're talking about speculation and changes to things, and that's really, I'm here to hear a case that's being brought with either a violation or not a violation, not a
Yes.
speculation as to whether or not it would be a violation if I changed this or I did that or what have you. Right now, my concern is that being on basically a advertising website, that you have tripped the threshold to be considered a short-term rental. And unless you can convince the city and its planners, and you may very well be able to do that, but this isn't the place where we speculate as to what you can and can't do. Right now, what I am seeing is that there appears to have been a violation. And I think that Mr. Jackson had said that, you know, that because of the intricacies and all of that, that the city was looking for, what is it, $1,000 fine?
That's correct.
And that might even be, if you can work it out, they might even be willing to refund that or ask me to withdraw that or what have you at some future date. But at this point, all I'm doing is speculating, and I'm not here to speculate. I'm here to issue an order that either you're in violation or you're not in violation.
Okay, good.
And if I could just clarify one thing with that, understanding, Mr. Magistrate, Mr. Defoe, you've mentioned several times that you've made some changes. Our position regarding the case as it stands today has nothing to do with us, our review of your changes or our acceptance of your changes.
I do understand, and I did
Okay.
speak. I did speak to Mr. Yates, and I did speak to you as well. At this particular moment,
They're resolved.
though those changes were. So now my position is that, let's say I got fined because that wasn't there. Just like, for example, there was a city violation because my door wasn't appropriate. I fixed the door. Now I need to keep the door because now it's in compliance. So it's the same thing. Yes, there was a violation because the verbiage and all that kind of stuff wasn't there. Now I'll pay the violation. I'll fix the verbiage to reflect that, which I've already did. I just don't want the city to come back and say, well, I cannot continue to
Mr.
operate.
Defoe, it seems to me that the easiest way for you is to sit down with the planners for the city and explain to them what it is you're doing, and then work with them if there is a way to make all of this work. But this isn't the place for it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm looking
And
forward
I had hoped that things would be more crystallized when they came here today, but I still see that there's Mr. Jackson appears to be somewhat still in the dark about some of these things that you have in mind, and these are all speculation, and I'm not here on speculation. I'm here on, there is a posting on a advertising website, and the city has recognized that you have some kind of unique or interesting vehicle that may work, but you need to work that out, and they've been willing to reduce the amount of fine that they're seeking. And that's all fine, but now you need to sit down with the people who do this kind of thing. I can't, the planners are the ones who drive the ship when it comes to planning, not special magistrates. All I can do is
Thank you, Judge.
is try to give you a little bit of input as to what I think, but it's ultimately the planners who are going to make the decisions as to whether or not they would consider it to be a viable business or not, the way it's structured. And they may be able to say, you change this and it might be better. I don't know. And I'm not here to speculate on that.
Okay. So in the meantime, I would like to continue this business model and then keep myself in compliance with the city, and because I've already brought the site to compliance with the city's law.
The site we complained of was removed. This is an updated site. We haven't reviewed, or we haven't made a determination yet. That's up to the staff whenever they're ready, or if they elect to. The way that it's resolved, we're talking about a business model. Business models go to planning and zoning, and they get direction from
I can
planning.
continue to follow up with whoever that I need to follow up with, but there are other business that exists that I gave you the.
And if there's a legal concern, that's independent legal
information is not
I
legal
would
guidance.
expect that if city planners have legal concerns, they would come to the city attorney's office
Yeah.
and say, we have an issue with this, and maybe y'all can work it out. I'd like
Yes.
to see that.
And I would like
But-
to sit down with him as well whenever he feels better, so
Well,
that I can continue to.
Mr. Defoe, I don't want you to get it misunderstood. My advice is my advice to the city.
Yes.
Your advice, you're trying to build a business model. You're trying to put together a program.
Yes.
You would need your own independent counsel to advise you
Yes.
on what's good and what's bad and what's, what I can tell you is that I'll tell my city staff what my concerns are, and they'll take whatever actions they believe they ought to
Exactly.
based on those
exactly.
concerns.
So all I'm saying is that the city's violation is for short-term rental. All I'm saying is that I bought the site to not allowing people that are not owners to stay there. As long as somebody's an owner,
As we spoke before, I have an open mind. I'm happy to see all the
Yeah,
stuff you want to
definitely.
give, but at the same time, understand that I can't give you those answers in advance of your
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to enter an order, okay? Now, the order is simply recorded in the public records, and if during that time period that follows, that transpires, you're able to work it out with city staff, they may come back and say, well, maybe they'll say that that order is, that they'll relieve you of that. But that's not my job. And at this point, I just want to get the matter that's before me resolved. And you need to work with the planners with your whatever changes or whatever are necessary. And if they can make it work, good luck.
thank you.
I mean, I'm saying that's, if you get it to work, that's great. But if you don't, then maybe there need to be changes. I don't know. And that's not my role right now. My role is to simply look at the facts that are before me, not to speculate on facts that may occur at some later date or what have you. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to enter the order, and then you can take it from there. In case number 7, RTL 09-2484, I find the respondent Chestnut LFTY 0329 DAO LLC to have been in noncompliance of Article 4, Section 4.1A and Article 5, Section 5.2.8.2 of the Land Development Code, which prohibits short-term rentals in zoning districts not zoned for short-term rentals. Such violations are irreparable and irreversible because the improper benefit obtained by the owner in a damaged surrounding neighborhood occurs at the time the violation occurs and cannot be undone as provided for by Section 162.091D Florida statutes for the property at 402 North Wild Olive and subsequently come into compliance on, do we have a date, Mr. Yin?
No.
I thought we did.
Are we using
Well-
the last hearing, or are we, because the ads are still up, so I'm not sure.
but modified, right?
Okay.
Which you hadn't reviewed as to its modification. What you've cited them for, when did that change? Or when was that altered?
That was altered. Give me 1 second. Let me look at his original date of compliance before he reposted.
This repost would be a new case if you elect to make it one.
Do you want the date that I emailed you?
Well, it's whenever you took it down. I just have to look at my date. Not that I don't believe you. It's just I can only swear to my facts. All right. September 17th, 2024.
And subsequently come into compliance on September, which not date?
17th.
17th, 2024. And hereby order the respondent shall pay a fine in the amount of $1,000 and not violate that section of the Land Development Code again, and that for any future repeat violation, the respondent may be placed on a subsequent agenda for hearing before the special magistrate for consideration of a fine of up to $15,000 for each occurrence as per Chapter 162 Florida statutes. And I would like to add that this matter had been continued based upon the with the concurrence of the city And the fine also reflects some issues that needed to be looked into further.
And can we add that?
And
I-
sir, I would strongly suggest that you can go several routes on something if you're trying to do a business. Typically, people hire when it's something where you're trying to find ways to work within the law, but there's questionable areas. You find some counsel who will advise you how to do that. And then you meet with the city planners and whoever they feel is appropriate to discuss what your model is and then determine it and come up with a way, if it's possible,
Yeah.
that you don't come back here.
So that's exactly what I did. So I called Picasso and I said, I want to bring my property to their structure.
I think our proceeding is over, but we can talk.
Yeah, so we can.
Yeah, I mean,
You'll talk.
the matter that was before me is now resolved.
Yes.
And you can talk with Mr. Jackson as much as
But-
Mr. Jackson wants to talk with you.
Exactly. I just don't want Mr. Yates to come back and then say, well, I'm still in violation.
Well, are you still advertising on the Airbnb website?
Yes, it's still, but it's the changes that were required are posted on that site.
Just to clarify, I have never given you a set of changes that would make the advertisement legal.
But I did email you about the new structure.
Correct, but I'm just saying at no point have I agreed with that statement, just
Oh,
so.
you said you didn't have the power to agree with it, that will be
Yeah.
up to the, yeah.
Good luck, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's nothing legal I can do for you. The only thing I'm saying is the documents you want me to see can help me guide planning based on whatever you go.
So right now it's up to planning. If I'm
Well,
okay with planning?
it's up to city services. It's not up to the city legal. So probably planning and zoning is the area you need to go. Probably, I would probably suggest, Dennis, what's Dennis' name?
Morozek.
Rose.
Dennis Morozek.
So that's the person you'd be asking for and seeing if there's some way you can get some time with him. All right? Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
And according to the agenda, is there anything further? We have miscellaneous business.
I have something. Ms. Woodard, who was not present for the first lien review via Teams or via Zoom, did appear at 1:30 and stated that she thought it was at 1:30. We explained that you had ruled that it was reduced to $5,000 per our agreement, and she agreed.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would have brought her back before, and we would have reopened that case. And that's all I have.
All right. All right. And then I have two exhibits that should be included with Ms. Sadhi's. the-
I already
the lien
have
review
copies
that
of
we
those.
reduced to zero.
I already have copies of those.
Well, you can have these as well.
Oh, I'm trying to take her book.
I have.
What?
So I was trying to take your book.
Yeah.
And is there anything further?
Nothing
No, sir.
further.
Okay, it being 3:34, I hereby call this session to be adjourned.